And he's been calling out Doja Cat a lot lately. I can't count the amount of videos he's made calling Doja Cat out for stealing his beat. So his assertion is that Doja Cat stole his beat and he's, I guess, taking legal action.
Doja Cat did what? Not to say that bigger artists don't steal.
What's going down? Welcome back to No Pain, No Gain, the only podcast featuring DJ Pain One every single freaking time. But I'm so happy. You know, I'm always happy when I got Erinn on here. I've done one solo podcast. People seem to like it, but it felt weird. So thank you for coming on. How are you?
Thank you for having me. You're the GOAT. So I'm just always grateful to be here. I feel like they're your fans, so they should be happy when you're on here, but I'm always grateful for the warm response.
Well, they get a video from me and a solo video from me every week. So
that's true.
They don't need that much solo Pain One, I don't think. And plus, there are plenty of Erinn fans on there. And, you know, especially when we were at MEC, if there was a week that Erinn missed, we would always hear about it and catch hell in the comment sections. So there's an interesting story unfolding. And of course, I'm on it because it has to do with producers. And this is actually a producer that you're a fan of.
Yeah.
Right. How did you discover, am I saying his name right? Vano 3000?
I think it's Vano, yeah. I discovered him because he was uploading like dirty flips to the internet. You know, like he would sample like songs that you can't sample. He would sample like incredible, just like throwback stuff from when I was growing up, stuff that my parents used to listen to that I got familiar with at a young age. And he was uploading it to Spotify. And I was like, yo. So I really started liking him because it was like this like young energy, this like, I shouldn't be doing this, but I'm going to do it. Because when I first listened, I used to try to count to see maybe it's because he only puts a few seconds. And for some songs, it is just a few seconds, which is still illegal, but some people are ignorant about that. So I was like, oh, maybe it's only a few seconds. And I'm saying illegal, not because I'm the police, because that's the standard that's been set. I think sampling needs to be I could get into sampling, but anyways, I loved his stuff because he was sampling stuff that most major producers would never touch, and he was flipping it. He had the craziest interpolation. So I think I've been a fan of him probably 3 or 4 years. I think I got into him either like late 2019 or early 2020 during the pandemic. And then like I was looking at it, got into his SoundCloud page, but I listened to him on Spotify because he flips the coolest songs.
Yeah, and I mean, he's doing well. I don't think he's a mainstream producer by any means, but he's at over a million monthly listeners on Spotify alone. So I'm sure he's built up a pretty good fan base for himself. And I'm not sure. It's obvious. He was also featured on Adult Swim. I don't know how many times that happened, but that's kind of like
he had tracks on Adult Swim, or does Adult Swim bring producers on, or what?
I think he had tracks on Adult Swim, and that's
okay.
That's really for kind of the new school instrumental beat makers. That's a great accolade. That's a major platform.
So good to know. That makes sense.
I'm not in that space, but I feel like that's just kind of, it's like, I don't know. It's like getting a placement on a major album for those of us who make beats for rappers, but for people who make, and he raps himself, I believe. I'll get into that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think he does. See, I'm ignorant. I'm more focused on the content he's been creating recently, and I'll get to one of the songs which did have vocals, and I thought they were his. But anyway, there's a controversy, and he's been calling out Doja Cat a lot lately. I mean, I can't count the amount of videos he's made calling Doja Cat out for stealing his beat. So his assertion is that Doja Cat stole his beat, and he's, I guess, taking legal action. In one of the videos, he's purportedly in a lawyer's office, and he's pursuing legal action against her for stealing this beat. And when I've had a couple people contact me and say, hey, can you cover this whole situation where Doja Cat stole a beat? Okay, cool, let's cover it. So I looked into it, and immediately, I recognized that it was a Dionne Warwick sample. Dionne Warwick's music was before my time, but it's been sampled. That particular song is iconic. She didn't write it. I forget who wrote it. It was a male artist, equally famous, if not more famous than her. And, I heard it on the Great Adventures of Slick Rick way back on Mona Lisa. So it's just one of those iconic songs. Kind of one of the, like you said, Erinn, not something that I would sample just because it's too big. But recently, a producer by the name of Earl on the Beat, who you're probably familiar with because he's in Atlanta. He's I think he came up with Lil Yachty. He produced Act Up for the City Girls.
He used to be known by something. He used to be called Earl something.
Earl the Pearl.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't know he changed his name.
Yep. He's Earl on the Beat, but I still think he goes by either. So he sampled the Dionne Warwick song Walk On By, and it's Doja Cat's newest single. And that single is getting a lot of traction, and a lot of controversy because it's Doja Cat. But now there's this extra controversy because of the accusation that this beat was stolen. So what's interesting to me is that, and I did this for myself. I'm not going to play it because I don't want to get in any sort of trouble. I took the Dionne Warwick song and laid it over the Doja Cat song just to see, how much they had manipulated, chopped, filtered the sample. The sample wasn't chopped. I mean, there's a 4-bar measure isolated from the Dionne Warwick song, and it's just repeated. It wasn't filtered. It wasn't pitched down. The tempo wasn't changed really. So it's a piece of the song that occurs within the first 30 seconds. So it's just kind of like a gimme, it's the chorus. You grab a little part of the chorus with the horns and a little bit of vocals, you loop it, you throw 808s under it. Earl created a beat section.
Is he rapping on? Is this the one that he's rapping on?
No, this is I'm talking about this applies to both. This applies to both because they both sampled the exact same portion and kept the tempo the same. The difference was, the drums that they added. Earl went the sub bass route. He didn't even add a kick. It was just sub bass, snaps, hi-hats, different pattern from what Vano did. Vano added more of a traditional hip hop sounding drum pattern, but same tempo because the sample they use it in the exact same way. They didn't change it. They just isolated that 4-bar measure. So instantly my radar is beeping up a storm because I'm like, okay, was this beat stolen? How could the beat be stolen when it's a sample of a third party? That was my first impression. What was your first impression?
So my first impression was like, oh, I love Vano, right? And then, because you and Dane brought this to my attention in our group chat on IG. So at first I was like, oh, Vano, okay, dope. And then it was like, oh, somebody stole my track. And just because I recognize how majors work, I now, like, the artist that I work with the most now is signed to a major. So, like, currently we're trying to clear an interpolation right now. Just because I know how hefty they filter, especially singles coming out, I was like, Doja Cat did what? Not to say that bigger artists don't steal, but arguably the most prominent female artist in the world right now stole your record. So then I just went and looked at the video real quick where he just puts them side by side. And I'm like, okay, this is a famous song and you're known for your interpolations, your flips, your, because he does like, he speeds them, he slows them down, he does all this. So I'm like, y'all heard me, I'm a fan. Vano is known for taking famous songs and messing with them, like in a cool way. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? So then when he said his beat was stolen, I'm like, somebody using the same sample is different than a beat being stolen, like you said. So that was my first thought. Then I was like, my next thought, which I hate that we live in this economy, is this just for promotion? Because it didn't make sense to me. Like, what is the legal basis that you're standing on for this? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, is it that y'all use the same sample? So then my thought process is, I know Doja's people cleared it with the sample was cleared. Did you clear the sample before you made the beat? Because I know he's not clearing the samples that he's dropping on these beats every week. You know what I'm saying? Because he has like full beat tapes. Am I not supposed to say that?
No, I mean,
I'm not. Let me be quiet because I'm not trying to blow up his spot because this.
But that's a criticism people have been making.
But I think sampling should be more economical for independent artists.
Oh, I agree.
I think sampling, the way that it's demonized right now, is really difficult for really creative people to, and some people say sampling is lazy. I think sampling is cool, and it's the epicenter of what hip hop was built on. Today we're recording on the 50th anniversary of hip hop. So for me, I disagree with that. I'm not trying to blow up his spot legally. So like, let me refrain because I'm a fan. And to me, that's what hip hop is. Hip hop is the dirty parts sometimes. But when I say dirty, I don't mean taking advantage of people. I personally like what he did. I personally think the Doja version is cool. But I was very confused. Like, what is the legal basis that he's standing on with this? Is it that you created the sample, it's a part of a pack that they should have paid you for? Is it that they actually stole your beat? Like, because saying that they stole your beat is, I think, a bit far-fetched if we're looking at the composition. But again, I didn't know what to think, and then we started talking about it. So it's a lot of a gray area with somebody who has made his name off of what he has to now be coming and asking for her to regard him in a certain way.
Well, to speak to what you just said, in his videos, I disagree with his wording. He said, she literally stole my beat. It's literally the same beat. And it's not literally the same beat. I mean, I know because of Gen X, I'm not trying to bash Gen X, but because of Gen X, the word literal has actually the opposite meaning now. They've run it into the ground to the effect that now dictionaries have both meanings. You know, the secondary meaning of literally is literally, not literally. I'm just like, fuck, man, this is a mess. So in the sense that it's not actually the same, then sure, yeah, it's literally the same beat. My question is, how would he prove that Earl took the idea? There would have to be a clear trail from his song. You know, for example, an email that he sent to Earl with that track before the track came out, and some sort of acknowledgement, right? You would think, right?
Or that Earl is a fan as well and heard it, you know?
Yeah, and then even then, so here's my question. Let's say that's the case. Let's say, for the sake of argument, I don't believe this. Let's say Earl stole his idea. What happens if two producers actually do steal sample ideas from each other? I mean, people flip the same samples all the time by accident. Sometimes they do it on purpose, like as a challenge. You know, like for me, my first major placement, I sampled Willie Hutch, Overture of Foxy Brown for Young Jeezy. And that had already, I remember I was mad about it too. It was some website, maybe it was DJ Booth even, some website put out a Who Flipped It Better article where they put my beat up against a track that had come out the year prior by Freeway called Baby Don't Do It. And that was produced by Chad Hamilton. And I was just like, wait a minute, why are you pitting me up against him? Like, you're acting like I stole his idea. Because I hadn't heard that song. And realistically, it was just an article. You know, I shouldn't have taken it personally. But there was never talk about me having stolen a beat from Chad Hamilton. Chad Hamilton never suggested that at all. It was just like, we flipped the same sample. We both had access to that record. It's from 1974. We both flipped it. But what if I had been like, you know what? I'm stealing Chad Hamilton's idea. Does he have a legal basis for coming after me simply because I used Willie Hutch's song? I mean, in this case with Doja Cat, the Dionne Warwick song is property of her label, the people who wrote it. It's not property of Doja Cat. It's not property of Earl. It's not property of Vano 3000. So how can they say that that sample is mine when none of them own it? Even if I, you know, Earl were to come right out, or if I'll use myself as an example, even if I come out and say, you know what, I heard Chad Hamilton flip that Willie Hutch, I wanted to try it out. I don't think Chad Hamilton could come and sue me for that, because I didn't infringe upon anything he created. I infringed on what Willie Hutch created. And therefore the clearance process was with Willie Hutch's estate, not Chad Hamilton's people. I'm sure this is legal gray area and there are probably exceptions and you know, but this has happened. I've never heard of anyone getting sued for flipping the same sample as somebody else.
I just want to clarify this too before we move forward. What is the statute of limitation for samples? Is it like, it's like 50 or like 70 years?
It's 70 years, but it's 70 years with an asterisk by it. It doesn't just mean that after
the publisher. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I just think people think that they can sample stuff because there are so many myths around sampling. You know, you can sample up to 4 seconds, wrong. You can reverse a sample and now it's transformative, wrong. You can claim fair use, wrong. You can sample something 70 years old and you're fine, wrong. You can sample a classical piece because it's so old, wrong. You're infringing on a master. So there are just so many myths out there. And
that's why when I was like going through the thought process with this, I was like, it's the same sample. I'm assuming the song probably came out in like the 70s. If it's Dionne Warwick, right? Like late 60s, early 70s.
Early 60s, actually.
Oh, okay. Wow. So, I mean, so they'll hit the 70 years, but my assumption with her, because that's a chart topping hit, is there's still all the red tape around that, right? Or am I assuming that wrong?
Well, and she's still alive. I think it's 70 years after the death of the person. Matter of fact, let me look that up.
And so that's the hard thing. Even as me, somebody who works in music, I'm on the executive side. I've had to clear records before. I've also avoided clearing records. Like, no, we're not going to do this. It's so much red tape and gray space that even for me, I'm like, I don't really know how this works. So unless I'm working with a major label on something, I really don't like samples, interpolations of older works because there's more red tape versus if you do a sample or interpolation of somebody else's record that isn't signed to a major label, that's not as complicated. But I'm talking about like older works. I just don't understand the math, science, English behind how the industry justifies that. That's why for me, even him making this claim, I'm like, what are you stating your claim on? Like, what's your legal basis? What are you saying that she did to you? / really her producer, and then how can you say that verifiably this is your thing because it's somebody else's work? Yeah. It's one thing if it's your beat and you're like, this is the day that I had the metadata in 2018. I came up with this. This is why I feel like this is stolen. Or even like the blurred lines case when that came through, or even like the case with Ed Sheeran that just came through. Like there's still a ton of gray areas around those, but the legal basis always came back to the original copyright owner. This one is like, you're not the original. You're a middleman. So
Right.
I'm not laughing, like, I just don't understand it. I'm confused where he's coming from with this. Again, as a big fan of what he does and as somebody who wants to encourage the art of sampling things, and I wish that the industry was different. This is not me being like, put him in jail. Yeah. No, I just want to know where he feels like where he's standing on this. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have a place to stand. I just don't understand it right now.
No, what's frustrating about all this stuff is that you can cover a song very easily, but you can't sample a song. And it's like, what's the difference? It's either you're infringing on one copyright or another. So why is sampling still not streamlined the way that, what is it called? Mandatory. What is it called? Damn, why am I fucking this up?
Right. It's something with an M.
Compulsory license.
There's another one. You're right, though.
But why isn't there a compulsory license when it comes to sampling? I feel like.
Right, because you could just go on and pay the little fee if you do a cover, and then the money gets passed through and you're good to go.
Yeah, because you're creating a new master. So I don't know, I guess the masters are just seen as the holy grail, and the underlying composition copyright is just kind of, that can be passed on. I think it's
because the labels, they're the labels and the publishers, they know this. They're the ones who want to control it. So it's like, with a cover, that's only really the artist who is singing it, right? That's what the...
Well, and then the labels are going to get money off of it, right? Because it's a new master. And so the labels used to control all masters pretty much.
But I'm saying, I think with like the beat, the reason that they don't let it go like they do on the other side is because not enough people understand it enough to question it. Then when it's questioned, it has to go back up into the main system. And I think that they saw a bigger way to make money and control it if it's a cover, because nobody could have predicted what YouTube or the internet did for covers. But I still think that the people in control know that they will lose a ton more control if samples are just an easier thing to do. And they probably think it's going to be harder to recognize original works. And, and then once you open the flag, I get it to a degree. Once you say, oh, you can just sample, you just have to pay this fee, then it's going to be a ton of people not paying the fee, still sampling, and then they have to vet through all of that. I get it, but I don't know. I just think the industry is so convoluted and it takes the fun out of the art. But I also, as somebody who works to protect other people's intellectual property, I don't know. It's just a hard place to be.
Yeah. And then to speak to the 70-year rule. So somebody would have had to have died in 1953 in order for that copyright to be erased and that recording to be in public domain today. And that would mean the final copyright owner, because if multiple people are sharing that ownership, then, and I don't know how that works in the case of a label, right? Because if a label buys the master, is that corporate entity then treated as a person who's still alive? This is why I would like to have a lawyer speak on this, and in a totally different direction, just to talk about sampling and, why sampling is governed by a different law than covering songs. So any lawyers, leave a comment, because it's hard to get lawyers on these podcasts.
Folks, come join us. Come talk about this stuff.
I would love to have Carl. I know Carl's doing a lot. So, yeah, it's worth a shot.
Now. He's like the hottest industry lawyer right now.
Yeah, I don't like bothering him, but I feel like this is an interesting conversation. So a lot of producers were cautioning Vano and saying, hey, don't bring heat onto yourself, because like you were saying, I'm not saying he didn't clear the sample. If he did, great. If he didn't, he's just he's bringing unnecessary attention onto himself. This reminds me of the Justin Bieber situation in 2020. Are you familiar with that? In 2020, Justin Bieber released an album called Changes. And
I love that album. So enlighten me. Tell me what's going on. I was just listening to that literally yesterday.
So on that album is a song called Running Over.
Oh, yeah.
And another artist named Asher Monroe went on a very similar tirade on social media about how Justin Bieber had stolen his beat.
Wow.
And he said, that melody, that synth line in Running Over is the same as it is in my song Synergy. And I released that song, the year before. So Justin Bieber stole it from me. And he was going off, and people, here's the thing about all these situations. People love supporting the artist that's accusing a bigger artist of stealing from them because we love underdog stories. Now, unfortunately, for all of the fans of Asher Monroe who were defending him and saying, yeah, Justin Bieber robbed you, it turns out that Justin Bieber's producer and Asher Monroe just simply used the same royalty-free Splice sample. And the person who created the royalty-free Splice sample is a guy named Laxity, and he was pissed because it's like you're fighting over something he created.
That you didn't even create.
Yeah, and he's not even a part of the conversation. He's just like, damn, why do now? So you're claiming that you were robbed because you used something that I created, and I'm not even a part of the conversation. So I felt that, and I unfortunately, there just didn't seem to be an accountability process. Like the guy didn't just say, okay, I'm sorry, fans. And because he knew damn well it was a Splice sample. You don't accidentally use a Splice sample, hear it in a Justin Bieber record, not open your session up and be like, oh, damn, I didn't play that. I guess I should just shut my mouth. He went on.
I feel like that probably almost definitely was a marketing ploy because I mean, like my artists, we have like samples, even like, so we work with some bigger producers for my artist, Caleb Mitchell, because producers just love him. So like we have some synths. We have a couple of samples that are in like Jid's music. And everybody has this, it's like that when I remember when Future's Fresh Air came out, Atlanta was like lit because so many people had used a similar, there was a producer who got to him, but everybody in Atlanta had already used his pack. So it's like, for me as a manager in hip hop, knowing the way that samples are circulated, knowing how popular Splice is, but even people like Business Boy, even you, like y'all sell drum loops, packs. You never know who's gonna pick it up. It could be Drake's producer because y'all are homies with all those people, and it can be homie down the street in Milwaukee who's dropping his first song. So for me, it's very strange when people who work in this industry so closely, like literally saying, it'd be one thing if a fan heard it and they were like, Justin Bieber stole this because they don't know anything about the industry. But you as an artist, knowing that your producer is building the track off of samples that they purchased, doing that seems like a marketing ploy, which is why I was confused with Vano. I'm like, is this for marketing? If it's not, that's fine. But the reason I'm saying, is it for marketing? Because like Homeboy literally pulled up into the lawyer's lobby and filmed it.
In the suit. Yeah, in the suit and tie. It was very intentional.
Like I'm currently being sued and it's just now, it's getting worked out right now. And it's ending up where they're going to pay me, right? So like, knock on wood, we just got to finish up the last bit of paperwork. But that's like, I can't talk about it much, but like, even when I first got sent the paperwork, I thought about blasting them online because I'm like, you look dumb knowing, like, I have all the receipts. You look really dumb. But I was like, why am I going to do that? Because it's usually the loudest people have something to hide. That's what I've come to know. This is not about Vano. This is about me and my situation. But I recognize that there's no merit in me publicizing this because all it does is give them more it gives them more publicity, right? So I've talked about it because it's happening to me, but I haven't given any specifics. So for me, I'm like, if you're in the lawyer's office filming a video, that means you brought somebody with you. You like premeditated what you wanted to say. You filmed it, watched it back, and then uploaded it and said, yeah, that's that shit. So for me, it's like if I really felt like Doja Cat, that's like, okay, I'll just give this example. There's this chick, I'm not going to say her name because I'm sure she got a settlement, but her voice is heard on Donda. And then they did a interpolation of her singing a song that she wrote. It's a very famous gospel song, and she's a new artist, like she's young. So she posts, thank you all for congratulating me, but I had no idea I was on this album. Legal action is being taken. That's all she posted because everybody's like, oh my God, you made it on Donda. We never heard about it again. I'm confident she got a huge check.
With an NDA attached.
For sure. But for you to do this, it's almost like you're putting yourself in a place where they want to treat you hostilely too, if there is some actual bearing to it. And that could be a maturity thing. I'm growing and maturing in what to say online and what not to say online as well. But I don't know. It all reads a little bit weird to me, considering how he's made his living, how he's become famous. And then suddenly we're getting all these videos. It's like, I would have just been like, shout out to, and this is just me, shout out to homeboy. Seems like we got the same type of ears. This is how I built the beat. This is the similarities. I would have just done hella tutorials and then been like, let me see if I can get Earl on a session where we're flipping and mashing up stuff. I just would have used it as promotion, which is what it seems like he's trying to do, instead of like, even if they did steal it, you're talking to the biggest label with the biggest artists, with the biggest lawyers. Like, I just don't see it panning out like he thinks it is. But yeah.
No, and I'm more leaning towards your theory that this is a marketing move on his part, and that he knows there's going to be good and bad, and he's just, puffing his chest out and saying, I can handle it. The reason I think that, one, is because, legally speaking, he knows he sampled. I don't think he would be that presumptuous to think that he was actually robbed here. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here because I don't think he would think that. That would just be a little strange. Also, he's released so much content in such a short time. So to speak to your point, if someone's pursuing legal action, they kind of they do it, and their legal team says, all right, now stop talking about it. Let us do our job.
Literally, my lawyer has specifically, there's certain things that I can't even post about right now in connection to this because of what we're asking for when we want this to end. Like, my lawyer is on my ass about stuff that I'm like, I wouldn't even thought about how that's related to this. Do you know what I'm saying? Even the wording in our emails going out. So I'm like, if he's really talking to a lawyer, they're doing a terrible job at damage control.
They also, this is the last point I'll make about this, and then I know you got to go. But the last reason why I think it's probably just a marketing gimmick for him is because he released a Doja Cat diss song recently. I saw it today. It's a song called Copycat or something like that, where he's calling out Doja Cat. Now, the reason why I think this is important is because never once did he mention Earl's name. He's been targeting Doja Cat because if you call out Earl, I'm not saying Earl on the Beat is not a big producer. He is. And he's also a sample-based producer. He was on Her Loss. And they sampled like Isley Brothers, some big artists, similar in stature to Dionne Warwick, the kind of thing that the average producer wouldn't touch because they don't want to deal with all that. But he's not calling out Earl. Why? Because if you call out Doja Cat, who had nothing to do with the beat making process, I don't think. Maybe she did. I doubt it. But if you call her out, it amplifies your reach. More people know about her. She's already controversial. Earl the Pearl's not getting trashed on the internet left and right for what he wore in a music video. Doja Cat is. So let's set our sights on the bigger target, because that's way smarter marketing. So I think this is a very intentional and creative, but potentially destructive marketing campaign on Vano 3000's part.
Yeah, I'm with you. I hate that he's doing it to a woman as well. And not to like, it's not all about like women versus men, but I'm with you. It's like him as a producer. If he produced a record, he would want credit as the producer. So him going after the artist seems intentional. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just like, this is literally what you do for a living. Like, you know how this works. And it could be somewhat ignorance. Like he may think he actually has a case and somebody gassed him up and they're like, yo, bro, let's turn this into, because even with my lawsuit right now, that's what it is. It's like somebody gassed this person up to think that they actually had a lawsuit. So then when all the evidence starts coming out, the person who wasn't a part of the evidence being created is kind of probably shitting bricks right now. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's like, sometimes when you get in a moment, you get gassed up and you try to stick your chest out. It's like, are you really ready to get punched? And that's what I'm concerned about for him. I'm a fan. I love what he does. I like the approach that he takes to music, but I've never even looked at him online. I just don't follow everybody that I'm interested in. So I didn't even know what he looked like. So then like when you sent the video, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I wonder why he, of all people, is doing this. So yeah, it's a very interesting case. Like, good luck to him. I hope that it's a situation that he's calculated the cost, and I hope that it doesn't end up in something super negative for him. Maybe he is bluffing on it all, and it's all just premeditated, like videos. But I do agree, it's like, he's bringing the heat to his crack shack right now. And it's like, bro, that shit can explode at any moment.
Yeah. I mean, I hope it works out for everyone. Because I don't pretend to know what's actually in people's hearts and minds. And so shout out to everyone involved. I like Vano 3000's music. I like Earl's music. And my honest opinion is that, or my hope is that it's just a very calculated marketing ploy, and that at the end of it all, no one's reputations are damaged and people get the benefit that they want, and that it just adds fuel to his fire, and it adds fuel to Doja Cat's fire and Earl the Pearl's fire. So hopefully that's the case. Erinn, I know you got to go. Appreciate you joining me today to talk about this. Shout out to everyone tuning in to the podcast. We appreciate you. Erinn, shout out your YouTube one more time.
Oh, yeah. I haven't vlogged in a minute because of this lawsuit. That's one of the things that I had to stop doing. So hopefully I'll start vlogging again. I have a new camera. Hopefully I'll actually pull that out. But it's at the Erinn Effect or Everything Erinn. Same on all socials, at the Erinn Effect. And I just dropped a new podcast that just started. It's more for Black women. But anybody can pay attention. People have been showing love. So tap in with me. I just released a course with Zoo Labs. There's a lot going on my side. So at the Erinn Effect, or just Google Erinn Knight and you'll find me.
Appreciate you once again. Shout out to everyone tuning in. Thank you. Till next week. Peace.